Hi, Phil Schoenberg, Fastpitch Power. Developing consistency as an athlete is generally a very good thing, both emotionally and physically. We've heard it said of athletes that they're unflappable, they're very steady, they have good command of, in this particular case, their pitches, and when they're out there in the 8-foot circle or wherever it is they are on the field, they seem to have a plan. But there is often a fine line between being consistent and being predictable. And as a windmill pitcher, you want to make sure that you're not crossing that line. We spent the better part of this winter in our clinics working on especially our advanced pitchers, and this is really what we're talking about today, on not crossing that line between consistency and predictability. A predictable pitcher is one who you're pretty sure is a batter and an opposing coach what they're going to do in a particular situation. And I'll give you an example. Several years ago, we saw a very highly touted, outstanding Division I pitcher who was a freshman for a well-established NCAA Division I program. And she was brought into a game that her team was winning 3-1 after her pitcher before her had left runners on second and third base with one out, late innings. This particular pitcher was outstanding and threw the ball at a very high velocity and struck out the next batter, who was the number 9 batter in the lineup, on 3 pitches, 2 fastballs and a rise ball. She happened to play for a coach who had the philosophy that I want to throw pitches in the strike zone as little as possible. Doesn't matter whether it's the first pitch or the last pitch. I want to try to get hitters to swing at balls that are outside the strike zone. Well, this is great unless you're dealing with advanced hitters who are very disciplined and have a very, very good idea of where their strike zone is. And in this particular instance, following the direction of this particular coach and hitting the catcher's target, this particular pitcher walked the next batter, who was the leadoff batter. Next comes the number 2 hitter. Now we have the bases loaded. Next comes the number 2 hitter, who happened to have the highest batting average in this particular lineup, and I also believe was leading their team in runs batted in. And as would normally be the case with this particular coach and her pitchers, count went to 3 balls, 2 strikes. And mostly she was throwing, this particular pitcher, her full-speed pitches. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Your team is up 3-1 in the late innings, and you've got the bases loaded with pretty much the top hitter on this opposing team in the batter's box. What are you throwing as a pitcher? Well, if you're honest, your answer is going to be, I'm going to throw my best fastball right down the middle of the plate, or close to the middle of the plate. I want to make sure that I'm not walking this batter. Well, here's the truth of the matter. You're up 3-1, and this particular situation, sure, you don't want to walk a batter, but if you walk that batter, 1 run comes in. You put a ball right down the middle of the plate that, by the way, that batter and everybody at that field is knowing in their minds you're throwing that fastball. If that batter drives the ball into the gap, that's at least 3 runs, and now you're behind in the game instead of ahead in the game. So the moral to this story is we need, as we develop as pitchers, to be able to command any pitch in any situation. So we spent the vast majority of this off-season working on that with our advanced pitchers. How did we do that? After doing all of our fundamental drills and warm-ups, we would have the girls throw a round of fastballs and change-ups, and then they would start working on their movement pitches. Now, for the purposes of this illustration, movement pitches are 1 up-down pitch and 1 in-out pitch. We're going to call it drops and curves. So they would first go through a series of working on their drop balls. And then when they spent about 5, 6, 7 minutes working on the fundamentals of their drop ball, they would stand in their line with their catchers and they would pitch a simulated inning, throwing only drop balls and changeups, having to strike the batters out before they walked them. Only drop balls and changeups. Under no circumstances could they throw a fastball. Then after they did that, they would go to their in-out pitch, which in this case was a curveball, and do the same thing. 5, 6, 7 minutes working on solidifying the fundamentals of their curve, and then pitch a simulated inning, throwing nothing but curveballs and changeups. Does two great things. One, it creates a tremendous level of focus in that pitcher, knowing that they have to throw their movement pitch and they have to hit the strike zone. And we weren't kind. We wanted to know that that ball moved. If the ball ended up over the middle of the plate, just kind of spinning lazily in the middle of the plate, we called it a ball. They had to make that ball move, and they had to make that ball, whether it was a drop or a curve or a changeup, end up in the strike zone. It worked very, very well for our advanced pitchers. And what they left the gym at the end of the clinic season with was something that is of paramount importance to any athlete, especially windmill pitchers. The confidence to believe in themselves that they could throw those pitches in any circumstance at any time and not worry that it's going to be something that the opposing hitter or coach is going to know exactly what you're doing. So it's very important for you to gain that confidence as athletes in your ability to do things that are not necessarily going to be predicted by the opposition or anybody else, and that you have the confidence to do that consistently. That will make you an outstanding pitcher. I hope that this has been useful. We love to hear your comments and what your feelings, thoughts, and experiences are in regard to what we talk about. Please let me know your thoughts. Talk to you next time.